causes lots of people not to.
No, so I'm saying no. So
it causes a lot of divisiveness within religious communities or within Jewish communities.
It's part of a hashkafa. Certainly, like if we take the Ramah, the way the Ramah has moved into our current world, which is definitely a milut of lahachmir world of kashrus handbooks, and now we can't buy fish and we can't buy cheese and we can't buy like lots of things that there's really no reason.
I think when you're talking about your relation with your family, you can break it down to the bare minimum, and the Ramah might even agree to those situations.
I talk about the modern Orthodox world in America that has created a culture of we only buy, right? It's like a very, very limited group of things that creates a situation where there can't possibly be any relationships with anyone outside the world, and anyone in the regular world.
In the world who is not Jewish.
Okay.
The non-practicing.
Okay.
That is actually totally corrosive to the Jewish community in that world. It does not create moral and kal vachomer in this beautiful.
So I think.
Look at that. I mean, you could just look around at you and see everything burning.
So I
it's
think
really a result of our inability to connect with each other. I'm sorry, but
yeah, fine.
Like people.
So I think when you talk about interconnecting with someone who's not like you, so I think you can find the kulot that you need, and then there's the thing in your own house, what you want to be makmir for yourself and for your family. I think those are two separate parshiyot. I think you can go very far with it. You know?
But it also has to do with you're educated to. So then you in your little world know the special things you could do, but then your children don't know them, and then other people in your community don't know them, and then and those behaviors that you might choose to do on the outside are looked at as non-halachic.
All right, so then we have, that just means we have a battle to fight. And there's education and there's things. Okay. All right, let's continue here. Mish, I agree with your analysis of the problem. Right. But I think that if somebody's going to visit their parents and the parents don't have a kosher home, you can be makil on a lot of things, right? But when you're in your house, you can have a different standard for yourself. Right. And that is actually rooted in halacha, how you define b'di'eved and shatat chak and all those sort of things. And you can elevate what it means to insult someone, and people are very sensitive, so it's a different type of shatat chak that they didn't have in those days. Right? So, that's it. Okay? Seder.
I would like to, we put on the agenda one or two classes on Scam Yenu. That is something I want to.
Not this year, but...
I'm just saying.
Yeah, okay.
That is something we
I actually thought of that, yeah. Yeah, okay. Okay. Let's start with waiting, okay? Now we're going to start from the front end. So we have the Gemara on Kuf Dalid Amud Bet. Right? Tana Agro Chamud Rabbi Abba, yeah? Of Ugvina Nechalim Be'afikoran. Rashi says Behefkerut. Right? Hu Tani Levahu Amar La Below Netilat Yadayim Below Kinua Chapeh. Rabbi Yitzchak Bered Rav Mishar She'ikul Levei Rav Ashi. Aitule Gvina Achal. Aitule Bisra Achal. V'lo Mashi Yadei. Okay? Do Netilat Yadayim. Amar Le Vatani Agro Chamud Rabbi Abba Of Gvina Nechalim Be'afikoran. Of Gvinain Basak Gvina Lo. Amar Lahu Hani Mili Belayla B'yama HaChazim. Okay? So it sounds like from here that in principle, right, there's no problem between meat and milk, except that you might come to eat them together, right? So the fact you have to do netilat yadayim when you see, you don't have to do netilat yadayim when you don't see. You do have to do netilat yadayim. Okay? There's no indication here about waiting or anything like that, right? On the next daf, we're introduced this new idea that you have to wait. Okay? But I mean, of course, the difference will be before and after, but just because the Gemara that I just read does not seem to distinguish between before and after. It's only the Rishonim that are going to say it's talking about the vina first, right? But if it was the meat first, you'd have to wait based on this Gemara. By minei Rav Asi mi Rabbi Yochanan, kama yisheh bein basar ugvina. Amalei v'lo klum. Ini v'hamar Rav Chizda achal basar asur lechol gvina. Gvina mutar lechol basar. Ela kama yisheh bein gvina lebasar. Okay. Amalei v'lo klum. And then it's consistent. Guf amar Rav Chizda achal basar asur lechol gvina. Gvina mutar lechol basar. Okay. So you're supposed to wait. Amalei Rav Achabar Yosef Rav Chizda basar shebein hashinayim mahu. This question almost comes out of nowhere. Okay, because we know, so the halacha from here comes out that achal basar asur lechol gvina, and we don't know for how long, and we don't know why. Okay, then the Gemara talks about basar bein hashinayim mahu, out of the blue. The implication is that this is some sort of explanation for why it would be, but it doesn't say that explicitly. This is some sort of explanation of why it should be that achal basar asur lechol gvina. Okay, so he says, basar shemesham mahu kariyalei habasar odenu bein shineihem. Now, the truth is, this could be an explanation for waiting. It could also be an explanation for introducing a new halacha that you have to clean your teeth out. And it has nothing to do with waiting. Right? What's bein shinayim is basar. So the basar is, whenever it's bein hashinayim, it's basar. Right? And it has nothing to do with the issue of waiting.
But it's on Rav Chizda, so it doesn't have to, I mean, this is the gufa on Rav Chizda, so it's explaining that memor by Rav Chizda, so I would think that you can't really necessarily apply to waiting at all, from the point of view of the way the Gemara is set up.
Oh, which way are you saying?
It's about the gufa.
Well, it's the gufa amar Rav Chizda achal basar asur lechol gvina. So achal basar asur lechol gvina is waiting, right?
No. That was before.
It can't mean forever.
No. What I'm saying is that the whole issue with Shehiyah happened before. We went back now to the Rav Chizda Meimran, and and Rav Yosef is talking only to that, to the gufa. I mean, you could say he's not, but I think this is about.
Now, if he is talking to the gufa, then it's talking about a reason for the waiting.
No, he's talking about why you can't. Well, yeah, but why you can't eat one immediately after the other. No, but it's about. It doesn't have to be about the waiting. It could just be about the order. About achal basar asur lechol gvina, gvina mutar lechol basar. Kari alecha basar odenu ben hashinayim.
So, one second. If I say, just keep it straight here. If I say achal basar asur lechol gvina, we know that if you eat meat, that at some point you can eat gvina, right? So that this achal basar asur lechol gvina is talking about waiting, right? Because at some point you can't. What?
Or cleaning
right.
your teeth.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. Basar.
It's not necessarily at all about waiting. It's about cleaning your teeth.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. So it's possible that basar den could be an explanation for waiting, or it could be an explanation for cleaning teeth and nothing to do with waiting.
Right, but I don't see that it's necessarily the way the answer is being formulated on the gufa that it should be at all about waiting. That's why I'm saying what I'm saying. It's just it's a tiny technical detail that it looks like it's chad v'chalak. It's about cleaning your teeth in this part in the gufa.
But you don't know if Rav Chizda is about cleaning your teeth. That's the point. Okay. All right.
According to beb'ach, that's what I'm saying.
You don't know. Okay. Karele abasar den v'shinei. Amar mar ukba. Ana laha milta chala gabar chamel gabe abba. Dilu abba hava achil bisra idna lo hava achal gvina ad lemachar ad hashta. Okay. So he's talking about waiting. Okay. He would wait 24 hours. Vilu ana bahas udatu delo achilna lesudata achrita achilna. Okay, so here we have again. Let's sum up. Basar ben hashinehem is maybe an explanation for waiting, maybe not. Okay, but now the Gemara moves into waiting, and then the question is how long. So Mar Ukba's father used to wait me'et la'et. Mar Ukba used to wait. Okay? What is that? The Sudata Achrita. So the Rif, I have the Rif here? The next page. So the Rif says, here. The shiur zman of a suda achriti, right? The ilu ana bahai sudata lo achilna, besudata achriti achilna, v'sheni mahai, the high damar of chizda achal basar achal l'sor gvina, the lo shari l'mechel gvina batar bisra, el ad shahile, right? He understands it as waiting and not cleaning the teeth. El ad shahile shiur. My ditzarich lisudata achriti, the amount of time that generally transpires between two suudot. Delo ashkechinan man deshari lemechel gvina batar bisra bepachot mihai shiura. Damar ukba afal gab deshari ki ashura karya nafshe chala bar chamer. He thought he wasn't so from. Okay, so that is generally estimated to be, the Rambam says, kimo shei she'ot. Right? Is it? Did I print the Rambam here?
Yes.
Second. Yeah. Misha achal basar betchila, bein basar behema, bein basar of, lo yochal acharav chalav, ad sheyeh beinehem kidei shiur su'uda acheret. V'hu kemo shei she'ot, mipnei habasar shel bein hashinayim she'eno sar bikinuach. So the Rambam holds that the reason for waiting and it's kemo shei shaot is because of basar bein hashinayim. Okay, legitimate way of reading the Gemara, but not hechrechi at all. Right, the waiting could be for a totally different reason. Okay, the Rif doesn't say.
It's implied that I can't get the meat out because he says it's not.
Sar bikinu.
I tried. I can't get it out, and then somehow after 6 hours, even though it's there, it's not meat anymore. That's
Yeah.
It's like it's gone.
I think we would all agree that at some point that's true, right? So you got to do a little.
It should be 24 hours.
Well,
6
no,
hours.
24
I
hours
think
is
that's
just-
from the
what?
Gemara. We saw that from our
So there could be, right? I mean, if you want to be machmir, you can be
This is the
machmir,
Tula.
right?
The
This is the
Rambam is
Tula.
Mekel here.
Right.
I think-
No, but Baruch Bazi says Anna. He says halacha l'maisa. I'm not so frum, so the fact that he said it means we can go. We don't have some bigger tzaddikim than Mar Ukba. Okay. Okay, hold on. But bein sudata l'sudata, the way the Rif understands it, is a period of time which the Rambam interprets as around 6 hours. By the way, there's a minhag, which personally is my minhag, that I wait 5 hours plus. There's a minhag like that came out of Poland. I don't know if you know that. You ever hear that minhag?
Plus
Because into the sixth is 5 hours.
I was looking. I couldn't find. I see people say after 5.5.
We do 5 and a little bit, right? So that's kimo. That already qualifies as kimo shei shaot. Doesn't it be shei shaot? It's kimo shei shaot. That was a bona fide minhag. If you're looking for a bona fide minhag. Okay. Okay. All right. So we have.
What I don't get about.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about minhagim. It's clear that what they're explaining is it's based on. It should be based on how often you eat, not on what they said how often they ate in their country in their time period. And that's what I don't get. Why?
You mean why sudachriti?
No.
You mean what does sudachriti mean?
Shear of sudachriti should depend on how often you eat. Right. That's why he said kamon sheishot, because he ate his meal for about 6 hours between.
Right.
Meaning, so why did I don't get.
So then you're not that's not the Rambam. I think that's the shita of where an hour comes from. But hold on, okay? But the shita of the Rambam is that it depends on something physical, namely the basar bein hashinayim, and Chazal were ma'arich that in order for the saliva to make the meat not have a halacha of meat anymore, it has to be in your mouth for 6 hours, and after that, it doesn't have a halacha of basar. And the pasuk that's saying a basar denu ben shinehem means they died within 6 hours of the time that they ate the meat, right?
Don't say from meal to meal. Then say from the time.
Okay, so then you have a question. You have a question on the Rif and a question on the Rambam. That's fine. Okay, I think there's another shita that comes from that.
There's
But,
another question, though,
yeah.
which is what do you do when oral hygiene changes? We have dental floss and we have
Right,
toothpaste,
okay.
and we can do kinuach hapeh shemamash mutzlach. Then why not eat after you floss and brush?
Right. So if you were just holding like the Rambam, so maybe the Rambam wouldn't even agree. Okay. But we have other shitot, and then it goes back to the other thing. Okay. So we have what the Taz mentioned, right? That there are these two ta'amim. I want to check. Let's take a look at the Gra here. In Peitet. Okay. Look at. Okay, let's see the Ramah in Peitet Aleph, right? Actually, let's just start the Mechaber and the Raman in Peitet Aleph. Achal basar afilu shel chayav ha'of lo yochal gvina acharav ad sheishesh sheish sha'ot, not kimo sheish sha'ot, right? Sheish sha'ot. Afilu im sha'a kishiur im yesh basar ben hashinayim tzarich la'asirot. So that's more machmir in the Rambam. V'halo eis latinok tzarich lahamtin. Right? Because there's basar ben hashinayim. Okay? ואם מצא אחר כך בשר שבין השיניים ומסירו, צריך להדיח פיו קודם שיאכל גבינה. ויש אומרים, אין צריכים להמתין 6 שעות, רק מיד, אם סילק, this is what's very interesting, אם סילק ובירך ברכת המזון, מותר על ידי קינוח והדחה. והמנהג פשוט במדינות אלו, להמתין אחר אכילת הבשר שעה אחת. ואוכלים אחר כך גבינה. ומיהו, צריכים לברך גם כן ברכת המזון אחר הבשר, שאז הביא כסעודה אחרת ומותר לאכול לדברי המקילים. אבל בלא ברכת המזון לא מהני המתנת שעה. ואין חילוק אם המתין השעה קודם ברכת המזון או אחר כך. So this is a totally different shita than both tam b'peh and basar ben hashinah. There's something else going on here, right? And that is the fact that you talk about birkat hamazon is a giveaway, right? What do you care about? You care really about not having basar b'chalav in the same suda, right? It's like, in a sense, eating a sandwich. But instead of sandwiching the meat, the cheese and the salami between 2 pieces of bread, you sandwiched it in between your netilat yadayim and your birkat hamazon. Right? What?
It's demarcation.
It's demarcation. Min d'oraisa, let's start it like this. What's the din d'oraisa? The din d'oraisa is you can't have a ta'arovet, you can't eat a ta'arovet, a basar b'chalav that came together through bishul. That's min d'oraita. Okay? Then there's D'Rabbanan, and there's Minhagim, which are extensions of the D'Rabbanan, where we say we don't want to mix meat and milk. Right? There's meat. The Rav always had this thing. He said, Basar bichalav. That's midoraita, when you muvashal basar and chalav together. And there's Basar vichalav, a vav achibur. Basar vichalav is midrabbanan, when you have the meat and the milk that's not muvushal together. But in a sense, if you have meat and milk in the same suda, that's having meat and milk together in some sense. So therefore, we want to say you can't have meat and milk in the same su'udah. So therefore, you make birkat hamazon, but just make birkat hamazon and a minimum amount of time. Nesha'ah achat. That's why he doesn't really care whether it's before birkat hamazon or after birkat hamazon. There's no concern here of not a basar ben hashinayim and not the tam b'peh. It's just a question of making a hefsek.
What's the sha'ah?
You just need a hefsek in time. You shouldn't feel like you're having it for dessert. Right? Because then even though you made birkat hamazon, you still experience it again. How many times? I mean, it happens in my house all the time. You finish eating on Shabbos, and then people want to already sit on the couch, and maybe birkat hamazon, then you eat dessert. But you feel it's like really it's experienced as part of the same sutta. So that you make a little time difference, a little bit of a halach. Again, here I'll say that it's not rigorous. Right? Here, it's just a question of how you feel that it can't be experienced as part of the same Suda, and that involves making Birkat HaMazon and waiting for an hour. If you look at the Gra, Vaminhag, Ot Vav, Binuyal Divrei HaZohar Mishpatim, Kol Man Da'achil Hai Michla Kechada, so about Basa B'cholov, right? Yeah. Kol Man Da'achil Hai Michla Kechada, O B'shat Achada, O B'su'ut Achada, right? Then you get some sort of tzura of an animal, right? That's the klal, okay? But the way the Zohar expresses itself is B'su'udat Achada, right? Kechada Shaita, O B'su'udat Achada, in other words, eating it together. So the Sha'at Achada, it's a play on words. It means, you would say Sha'at Achada, it doesn't mean 1 hour. It means at the same time. It means the same hour, right? And it's not after an hour. It's just a way of saying time. Ein Adam she'en lo Sha'ah. Doesn't mean Sha'ah, an hour. It means time. But from that, the minhag must have come to take the Zohar literally, to take the word Sha'ah. It means Sha'ah. But it also makes a sense because we're not talking about chewing it together. So we're talking about not eating it at the same time. So what does not at the same time mean? So pick your thing, pick your shear that it's not the same time. If I eat the meat and I wait 30 seconds, is that at the same time? Or so you have to draw the line someplace. What makes it not the same time? So the truth is, once you have to draw the line someplace, your guess is as good as mine. It should be considered the same time. So for that reason, they said b'chadashata, right? It's the same.
Their minhag was to not do the Birkat HaMazon. They might have done it in the same suda.
Who's minhag?
Minhag HaPashut. Are those
What he
people-
quotes, Elu lahamtin achar achilat basar sha'achat, v'olchun achar kagvina, umiyu tzrichim levarech gam ken Birkat
He
HaMazon.
says that you need to. Are these people doing it? And he's.
Is he still
Sounds
describing
to
the
me that
minhag?
they.
I don't know. That's an interesting question. I'm not sure. I don't know. That's an interesting question. Does anybody know what any Dutch Jews if they bench or not? 1 second. רבים עושים פשרה מדעתם להמתין שעה אחת אחר סעודת בשר וסקו בירכו ואוכלים גבינה אף אגב לא שכם רמז לשיעור זה וכל אימי התוזר מתירים אבל הצלוב משהו ידיהם מסעודה שחרית לערבית גם אין חילוק בזה בין אוכל ובין okay. Yeah, this is the Marshal is very much. You think the Ramah is Mahmir?
Yeah.
Okay.
Except the one time where the Marshal said not to be Machmir, everyone said don't listen to him. That was here.
That was
It was Nisiman, yeah. He said to be Machmir and something was Kfira even.
Yes.
It's Derech Minut.
Yes. But
Right.
it's not like.
Okay. The Rambam has a thing like that on a certain Chumrah. He says Derech Minut. There were women who waited 14 days after the Re'iyah. It was not just the 5 days and the 7 days, that there was a minhag in Austria to wait for 14 days. And the Rambam quotes the minhag, he says, Yesh is a derech minut. He thought maybe it's from some sort of Kara'itic interpretation of Psukim or something. Anyway, yeah, but let's stick to here. So the third possibility, in terms of understanding what the minhag to wait is about, is not about anything physical, either tam or basar ben hashinayim, but rather to really drive a wedge in between basar and chalav. That midoraita, it's cooking it together. Then you understand what you can understand what the minhag is about. It really is an extension of the idea. Right? Joining it together physically through bishul, that's the doraita. And then you separate them through, first of all, if they're not joined together but they occupy the same space, that's already the rabbanon, right? Salami and cheese sandwich is already the rabbanon, it's not joined together. Then you want to separate them further, and you say you even have to wait, not to have them part of the same framework. So you don't want them as part of the same su'udah. Okay? So it's interesting what happens if you're snacking or things like that. So it's not really a su'udah anyway, so you just grab a piece of meat, right? And then a little bit later you want cheese. There you need to make a bracha. You think maybe you need to make a parei nefashos? I don't know.
I think didn't someone say that? I thought
It makes sense that somebody would say that, but I'm questioning whether, since he never really had a kaviyut su'udah in the first place, so maybe there's no misgeret that's holding them together. You understand what I'm saying? What? According to this minhag.
How did the minhag develop? That's what I don't understand.
That to 1 hour?
I don't understand how,
Yeah.
if you learn through the sugyas and
How
you
1
learn
hour
through the
should be enough?
Rishonim, that you have two approaches, the Basar Ben Hashinayim or Ben Suda Lasuda, how do you get a minhag that
So this maybe what the Rif meant when he said Suda Lasuda, it means just not to have it in the same Suda. I know, I understand, but you're asking how it could have happened. You talk about Ben Suda Lasuda, the point is
but the
not to
Rambam,
have
but
it.
you have the Rambam and other Rishonim in between. How did you get this? You know, how did?
Rabbeinu Tam mentions it's in Rabbeinu Tam, the 1 hour.
No, 1 hour is not the benching and.
Right.
Tom didn't wait an hour. He just washed his mouth out and ate it.
And he benched, right?
No, not.
1 second.
The Tosfot say.
Hold on.
You should do benching. They don't say the same with any time.
All right, so you're asking where is it in Rishonim? So that's okay. Hold on. So the Suda Achrita, La Suda Shugim La Soda Chashav Arvit. Here, the Suda Achrita Achilna. Okay, it's on
The
the
second Tosfot. The second, yeah, but that's not.
Kuf Hayim at Aleph. The Suda Achrita Achilna. That was Marukba. As opposed to what the Rif said, Ben Suda La Suda. He says La B'Suda Shirigilim La Sot Achat Shachrit V'Achat Arvit. That he waited that long. Ela Afilu La'al Tarim Silek HaShulchan B'Rech Mutar. The Lo Plug Rabbanan. It just means don't eat it in the same Suda, and that's what I was talking about, right?
Which doesn't say an hour.
He doesn't say an hour.
You could just flip off that tablecloth.
So what?
You just whip off the tablecloth.
Whip off the tablecloth and bench, right?
But Rabbeinu Tam seems like he could eat it in the same meal.
Yeah.
Rabbeinu Tam just washed his mouth out and washed his hands.
Where's the Rabbeinu Tam?
The one before.
Hold on. I'll be 1 second.
6 lines down.
Rabbeinu Tam the first one.
Hold on. Here, 1 second. Rabbeinu Tam first. V'chein al chad the achal basar sulachol gvina hainu below netila v'kinuach. Aval b'tav v'kinuach shari. Yes. You're right.
They had everything.
Achal gvina mutar lachol basar. Below tila. Right. What below achal atzudah riti hainu below netila v'kinuach. Right. So he holds that the problem is physically mixing the meat and the milk. So you have a choice. Either you have to wait, or you can do netilah v'kinuach, right? Clean out your mouth and your hands, right? Okay.
So you could have like a meat.
Right. So he has no problem with joining them together, right? For him, the issue is just physically being over the Rabbanan of eating basar v'chalav. That's all he cares about. Okay, then you have ha'olam nahagu shelo ochel gvina achar basar klal afilu achar oaf. That's a separate thing. What the status of oaf is. Okay, so let's talk about that for a minute. So we have 3 explanations really of what the issue of concern is. Okay, the first 2 can really be categorized as under one broad category, is the physical mixture of the meat and the milk. And that could be because of the basar ben hashinayim, or because of the tam b'peh. Okay?
So 3 reasons.
Right?
I'm sorry.
Why you have to wait between meat and the milk. So the first 2, namely either tam b'peh or basar ben hashinayim, means that there's a physical thing that you're concerned about, which has to do with joining together the meat and the milk physically. Right?
The Rashi that says the Tamapet, on which sheet does he say it? Because he's not saying it on the waiting sheet, but he's saying it on the written on the mouth sheet, right? I don't have the Rashi in front of me.
I don't
You
either.
didn't give it. But the Tamapet, he was on a line to explain, not the waiting, but well, I don't remember.
1 second.
Was that
Here one. Asul lechol gvina. It's up here. No. I'm not sure you're right.
So then it's
It says achal basar asur lechol gvina. Second. It's Amar of Chizda. Achal basar asur lechol gvina. Yeah? Rashi says, asur lechol gvina, mishum de basar motzi shuman, v'nidbak bapeh, u'ma'arich b'ta'amo. Okay? It's going on that. And then right afterwards it says, El kama yisheh ben gvina lebasar. That's big. Right. Okay, but it's so it is talking about
but
the
if you
reason
use
for the way.
toothpaste, you might be able to like get rid of the taste.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, though, like you think about garlic or onions, those things you eat them and I know they're not. I don't.
See, what I wasn't sure about, they talk here. I'm really not sure about this. They talk about tam beped, and then your toothpaste, or you're cleaning out your dental hygienist. You go and but.
But even just eating the bread to do good communicative effect would change the number.
Right, but if you talk about the tam bepez coming from the fact that it's still in your stomach and it's still coming up, right? Sometimes you go to a wedding and the food is like that, right? So there, washing your mouth wouldn't help. In other words, because it's still in your digestive system and you're still tasting it. Maybe that's what it means, right? That could be what it means.
Then you might need 24 hours.
Right. Okay, but again, maybe that was as far. I don't know how long it takes to digest meat. Okay.
Tons.
What?
What if you took tons?
All right. So you could have like these extreme situations, but maybe because it's motzi shuman, v'nidbak bapeh. It sounds like they just sit in your mouth, right?
That's not digestive. Where did you see the digestive piece?
I was just wondering.
I mean, it's a great thought, but I didn't see it anywhere.
Because I've seen it. I can't remember where I
I
saw
heard
it.
it said.
The basar motzi shuman v'nidbak bapeh.
That would be that was for the sheep that if you chew for a kid, you didn't have to wait because you didn't swallow it. That's identifying Rashi with the side.
If you chew, you don't have to wait. There's only basar be'eshinayim, and basar be'eshinayim is not the explanation for waiting. Right, but if you don't have to wait, but why don't you have... Yeah.
Identify Rashi with the opinion of not chewing.
Right, correct.
So that
Yeah.
implies that it was adjustment.
That's true. That's it. 1 second. Where he says, Lo es latinok. Lo es latinok. Here he says, Tzarich lamtin.
Correct, but the day that...
Okay, 1 second.
It was in the top dollar, no? Where he said...
Hold on.
The person that wanted the
Hold on 1 second.
Was it that or was it...
Here's some tishay she'ot. 1 second. Yesh m'chil afil basar. No.
It's a picture, too.
Ayin shach im lo esitok tafshil sheyesh bo shuman lechora lechol ha-perushim ein tzarich lamtin. De moshech leka kevet lo achal. That's it. Uben hashinayim leka. El mikol makom katav prim gadol yesh lachmir lahamtin shesh od mishum lo plug. Okay. So if you say you need to eat it, so you're talking about the digestive system. Okay.
That doesn't sound from Lashon Rashi at the time of the pet, does it?
Right, but then he says ma'arich ta'amo. Yeah, I know. Okay. Okay, just one more point that I want to address. We have this issue about basar oaf, right, and basar chaya for that matter, which is Rabbanan. And we have a machloket here with regards to kal, whether you say chanan in the basar b'chalav of kal, right? In other words, the kal was ne'esar, because it got cooked with other meat, and it wasn't shishim, so the kal, together with the milk inside of it, became basar b'chalav midrabbanan. And now it falls into something else. To other meat? Do you need shishim against the chal or just against the chalav itself? Okay. So that was a machlok between the mechaber said no, and the Ramah said yes. No surprise, okay, in light of this discussion. So the Taz says, he extrapolates from this, Me'achshav, he says, Nolad lanu machloket chadasha, so ben Rambam l'Rashba. Mashalo is karba poskim. Denei Rambam lo amrina nafilu basar b'chalav shumi d'Rabbanan chaticha atzma nasat nevela. That was the case I gave it to you, right? Where basar of was in chalav, you just be marbeh, and there's no such thing that it was me'esar already, so there's no chanan, right? V'chen katav Beit Yosef b'shmo, etc. Katav Rambam b'perek tedvav milchot malchot asurot, etc. Keitzad chalav shenafal l'kdeira sheyesh b'basar of natan tam b'kdeira marbeh aleh basar of ad kan shano. Harei afilu laharbot b'yadayim hitir. Rashba afilu im nafal memela achar kach basar of lo mahanit techaticha asu nas nevela tchila. Fi ma shepasak Ramal kan karashba nimtzal l'didan lo kaimuk Rabbeinu Ephraim, that you have a problem of chanan in basar b'chalav midrabban. But the case of chal that they're talking about might be different. You could say with different l'kula or different l'chumra. That's not, because there the chalav is drabanan, but the mean that you're talking about meat, which is beef. So that maybe there is chanan, you could see. But in oaf, where the mean of the basar is not midoraita, so there maybe there's no chanan, and you can stick with the Rambam. Now, on that question itself, so the Taz understands that that's a machloket, okay? And here then you can formulate the question as follows: why do I say, if I say oaf is midrabanan, oaf is, so what is the gzeira? Do I say it's basically a shem? If I let you eat oaf and chalav, since oaf looks enough like meat, you're gonna come to eat meat with chalav, right? The Torah even calls it meat. People call chicken meat. Okay? So it's just a gzeira. Okay? If that's the case, then I need not necessarily say that there's chanan. All I want you to do is not to get confused. I don't want you, if I say that you can eat the oaf and the chalav, that you can come to eat beef and chalav. So it's enough to say that just don't do it. I don't have to say that it's chanan. It doesn't become basar b'chalav midrabanan. The other way of saying it is that midrabanan, here's the formalistic definition, that midrabanan, oaf is basar. What all the Rabbanan did, they didn't create something new in a sense. They just extended the definitions, because you have to define what the basar is anyway. The Torah says gedi, and the Torah, according to Chazal, expands it. It's not just the gedi, it's all behemah tahora, right? And maybe it's even chaya, right? Not according to how we paskin here, but the Rambam in Hilchot Mamrin paskins that chaya is also min Torah. Okay, so that you have to define it anyway. So midrabanan, they stopped at behemah, yeah, but I'm sorry, midoraita, they stopped at behemah. And anything that's not basar behemah, minat Torah, is not called basar. Okay? Midrabanan, they extended it, and that includes oaf. So midrabanan, oaf is basar. And
that they differentiate when it comes to that to
oh no, so okay. So in machalot asurot, first of all, there are chumras even to treat it that way. But in machalot asurot, in terms of the Isra Achila, they said that oaf is basar. And then there's chanan. Okay? That's the way to look at it. Now, two other points. What? If you say that the way the Taz interprets the Rashba, that there's chanan, against the Rambam, that there's chanan in basar of b'chalav, so then what you're saying is that they redefine. It's not just a question of like what did they decide to do. It's a question of how they made it usher. Did they make it usher as a harchaka, or did they make it usher by extending the definition? And chanan is an indicator of that. Okay? That it really is basar b'chalav midrabanan. Okay? You have all these other issues. Like there was a minhag, you'll see in Tosfot, of not waiting to eat, go back to waiting, that waiting after basar behemah, but not waiting after basar of. There was a minhag like that. right? That's in Tosfot. Somebody told me that Greek Jews are actually noheg that way. I didn't look into it. What's the svara? So, first of all, it's obviously based on oath being d'Rabbanan. But if you want to hold, well, maybe that's a machloket. That we who wait after oath, we hold oath as d'oraita. We don't hold that way. So what is it based on? What the nature of d'Rabbanan is. Do I treat oath as basar? Then I have to wait after oath, just like I have to wait after basar. Once I decided that it's basar d'Rabbanan. But if I say no, it's a harchaka, so then there's room to say, okay, so it's a harchaka. So the minute to wait only applies to behemah, it doesn't apply to oath. Okay? That's one point. The other point is, there's a stira in the Rambam. The Rambam says basar chaya in Machalot Asurot. He says basar chaya is midrabanan. In Hilchot Mamrim, he says basar chaya is min Torah. And read it to me. What does he say there?
I thought Kapsayin is saying it's from the Torah.
Hold on. Hold on. Where are you?
I'm on Halach Kapsayin.
No. That's in terms of the
That was similar to what the Ram with the
Shulchan Aruch. I know.
And I actually thought at the time that Shulchan Aruch was following the Rambam, and he got confused even though he wasn't holding like the Rambam.
No. So the thing is like this. The Rambam even says in Hilchos Mamrim that if you paskin that chaya, that chaya is d'Rabbanan, which is in fact what he does paskin, he changed his mind obviously. He says in Hilchos, and he didn't go back and change Hilchos Mamrim, but his example of lo tigra is if you paskin basar chaya is midrabanan as opposed to midoraisa, you're over the issue of lo tigra. Because the Rambam has this thing of bal tosif and bal tigra in psak, not only in adding to the. Because he says explicitly. I should put a Rambam. He says explicitly that chaya is doraisa, and that's where the Mechaber gets it from here.
I'm saying this is.
Hold on, 1 second. Basar, hold on. Chaya v'of.
I know that the Mechaber thinks that chaya is D'Rabbanan.
Hold on. I'm sorry.
But I'm asking about this Halacha Kapzayin.
Because that's the harchaka. And he says, "Eino noheg," but ubasar chaya v'of. Afil b'chalav toram mutar v'bishul b'hana. So he holds, the Mechaber holds explicitly it's d'Rabbanan.
Yes, I know that.
Okay, and the Rambam. 1 second.
It's not from the Halacha Kapzayin.
That's just talking about the Basar Karavi. 1 second. Hold on, 1 second.
When the Rambam's talking there, he's talking about something different.
Hold on.
Here,
Okay.
here's the Rambam.
The Rambam in Machalot Asurot Perek Tet Halacha Daled.
Says what?
You have it? Do you have it in your computer?
Where are we doing?
Perek Machalot Asurot Perek Tet Halacha Daled.
I did not.
All right, in Mamrim it's Perek Bet Halacha Tet.
Yeah, that one I opened.
So he says there is no right, right?
He says chaya, but he's talking there about chasur losif.
Right. And he says if you say chaya is what?
He says, שזה היה כתוב, אסר לא תבשל בגדים בחדי בימו, למדו שזה היה כתוב אסר לבשל ולאכול בשר וחלב, בין בשר בהמה, בין בשר חיה. אבל בשר העוף מותר בחלב מן התורה. אם יבוא בית דין ויתיר בשר חיה בחלב, הרי זה גורע.
Right. Okay. So he says that chaya is really min Torah, right?
He says it's deoraita, but אם יאסור בשר העוף,
then you're Baal Tosif. So all I'm interested in Hilchos Mamrim, he says chaya is midoraita. Okay. In Hilchot Machalot Asurot, he says chaya is midrabanan. In Machalot Asurot, it's Perek Tet Halacha Daled.
So then why here does it make a distinction?
Okay. So that's what I want to get to. Now, in the Rambam, what probably happened is he changed his mind and went back and he changed it in Machalot Asurot, where that's the Ikar Halacha. And he just happened to, and he didn't change it in Mamrin, because he just used that as an example. So he didn't think of changing it there, right? He maybe forgot about it. Right? But his Ikar Shita is that Chaya is the Rabbanan. Okay? That concerns me less. Okay? What's interesting here is that in the world of the Harchakot, right, even though the Machaber passes like the Rambam Machot Asurot, that Chaya is the Rabbanan, but in the Harchakot he treats Chaya as a Doraita, and it's mashma that it's not based on the physical characteristics of the Chaya, right? He says, "Afil basar Chaya v'of asur laha'aloto al shulchan," right? And then he says, one second. Where was that? We saw that, right? In the beginning. Yeah. The Mechaber is Sif Bet, in Peitet Sif Bet. Achal gvina mutar lechol acharav basar miyad. 1 second. Tzurich l'rachtzan. Yeah, and then he says,
There the shop in the Taz saying, it looks like a behema.
Right, v'achar yadiach piv b'mayim or b'yayim. Romim b'basar behema v'chaya. V'im ba lechol basar of achar gvina eno tzarich lo kinu v'lo netila. So Chaya, right, so even though Chaya is Rabbanan, but in terms of the Hadach and the Kinuach Vapeh, he treats it like it's a Doraita. Okay? So you could say it's just based on the physical attributes that Chaya looks more like beef than oaf. Okay. Or maybe the question that we had, namely, how do I view Basar B'chalav D'Rabbanan? Do I extend the definition of Basar? Or do I say it's only a harchaka? So the answer is yes. Whereas the answer is it depends. Chaya, when they said Chaya is the Rabbanan, and when they said Oaf is the Rabbanan, they said two different things. When they said Oaf is the Rabbanan, they just said it's a harchaka. When they said Chaya is the Rabbanan, they extended the definition. And why? Because Chaya really does look like Basar. But it's not Gdi, right? And it's not an extension of Gdi, but Midrabanan they extended it to include Chaya because of the similarity. But Oaf, people call it Basar, it's not really so similar, so we'll say as a Harchaka. So there are two different ways of answering it, and that's why we have the two different ways of relating to it. In terms of the Ikar Din, Chaya is Drabanan, but in terms of the Harchaka here, we'll treat it like it's Doraita because the nature of the Gzeira is different. And then you have a Chiddush which appears nowhere, but it's an interesting idea, that if you want to say Hanan, right, B'Basar B'chalav D'Rabbanan, I'll tell you that in Oaf there's no Hanan, but in Chaya there is Hanan, even though they're both D'Rabbanan. I could propose such a chiddush, right? Right, I'm making this up, but it's all right.
But it was whole because the Chaya is Shayach to the Chalevi Mo.
Right. I mean,
about Chalevi Mo with the Chaya, you can't do that.
Well, that would be the sheet that even says that Chaya is min Torah for that
No,
reason.
but
Right.
you could say that Chaya is not min Torah because it's not.
Right.
Either it is or it isn't. That's
Right.
a yes or no answer. But
Yes.
you could. But the other
There's
part,
more of a reason to say.
There's a science which goes with the Rambam. I mean, there's a scientific problem with saying a Chaya is not a Chalevi Mo. There's a.
No, it's just saying
Chaya
that
versus
it's
Chalal.
not.
But then you have the problem.
Behemat Mea also has Chalevi Mo, right? But it's excluded because it's not Gdi for another reason, right?
It's not you have to eat it.
What? No, but we talked about that already. Okay, the last thing I want to say is that the Taz, when he says Yav Machloket B'Basar B'chalav D'Rabbanan, whether it's Hanan, he makes a little jump, which is, I think, not justified. He starts talking about whether there's Hanan and Yisrei D'Rabbanan in general. In other words, if you hold, not like Rabbeinu Ephraim, that there is Hanan in Shari Surim, even not in Basar B'chalav. So he says, but maybe that's only in Isurei D'Oraita, but not in Isurei D'Rabbanan. See that in the very end? He says, Im ke nimtza l'didan delo kaimelan k'Rabbeinu Ephraim, that we say b'chol ha'isurim nasa nevela. Then he says, according to Rashbaz, afilu b'Isurei D'Rabbanan. Suppose you have an Isurei D'Rabbanan, stam yenga, right? Something else is asa midrabbanan. Will you say Hanan? If you say Hanan b'Shari Surim, does it include Isurei D'Rabbanan? So he thinks it's the same question. really doesn't have to be the same question at all, right? I could say that it goes back to what we talked about in Ein Mevat Nesul Chatchila. Remember we talked about how you understand Isurei D'Rabbanan? Whether they're Isurei Chefetz or Isurei Gavra? When Rabbanan said something was Asur, right? You could take the theological approach that only God can create an Isur Chefetz. It goes, you see, it does go back to Plato. If only God can create an Isur Chefetz, when the Torah says that you shouldn't eat nevela, so it created the category of nevela. But when Chachamim said, don't eat chametz b'sha'ah chamishit, so why can't you eat chametz b'sha'ah chamishit? Because there's a mitzvah l'shma divrei chachamim, right? So the mitzvah to l'shma divrei chachamim is a chiyuv gavra. There's nothing. It's still not chametz. There's no. Let's put it this way. What's the word? There's no taboo on the object. Chachamim can't create taboos on the object, or they can't in Lashon terminology. They can't create Isurei Chefetz. They can only say, you have to listen to me. So I said, don't eat that. But that thing that I told you not to eat is still in its identity something which is mutter to eat. It's just I can't eat it. And nobody else can eat it either because we all have to listen to Chachamim. Right? So then I can say, the question of whether this Hanan, even if I say this Hanan b'shar Isurim, if I say it's only in Isurei Doraita, not Isurei D'Rabbanan, I'll say, what is Hanan b'shar Isurim? Is when the Isur transforms the heter into Isur. Let's take that approach. So then, it's only if the Isur is Asur in the Chefetz. But if the Isur is Asur, the Isur is not really Asur, it's just Asur for me to eat it, but the thing itself is Mutar, there's no din to talk about Hanan there, it doesn't make any sense. So whether you say Hanan and Isurei D'Rabbanan could depend on how I understand Isurei D'Rabbanan, whether the Isurei Chefetz or Isurei Gavra. And then there's also room to distinguish, what?
Did you just say we have to see them as Isurei?
No, I said you could. I told you, Achronim discussed this. There's a very long Atvin D'Oraita.
Right? Klal
Yud that talks about this. Okay, all right, so we'll stop here. All right, next week we'll talk about...